Good evening, everyone. Hi, team.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So, you're listening to the Raising Independent Thinker show on Hindsight Radio. I
Right.
hope everyone is doing well out there, staying healthy, and feeling blessed. I'm your host, Bathsheba, and along with me is Akeem L., who many of you know is the creator of this platform, as well as the host of the Truth Tuesday show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And he'll be co hosting with me on this evening.
All right. Good
So,
evening.
yeah, good evening. I feel like my week has been pretty productive, and I did take a little mental break last week and decided not to do a show. But this week I'm back and I'm feeling rested and relaxed. How was your week, Akeem?
Oh, it was excellent. Can't complain. Uh,
Okay.
this upcoming week is going to be pretty busy, but overall, it was good. I can't complain.
Okay. I can't complain either. This past Saturday was the first day of spring, or what's
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
the vernal equinox. And I read it's where the entire globe receives equal intensities of energy from the sun. And I think that's so amazing. And I know some of us celebrate this time of the year differently. I know Akeem did a personal ritual, and I think I'm going to do mine with the kids sometime this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supposed to do it between the 19th, 20th, and the 21st, somewhere in that. Um, there was a new moon earlier in the week.
Hmm.
People do it then, but you want to do it as close to the spring, because that's really the actual new year when life is coming back to the planet. Not the planet, to this area. I guess spring is different from, depending on what part of the planet you're on. But for this side, it's the new year is actually in March.
Right. Yeah. I know for me, I'm just really excited that the weather is warming up. I'm excited about planting this year. And
Mm.
just the whole concept of spring being the time for a new beginning. Um, it's always exciting. So I'm very excited to be starting a new series of discussions, which I'm calling it Facing Difficult Conversations, where each week we'll delve into topics that we tend to stay away from discussing with our children. So, since this show is all about raising independent thinkers, with that comes facing those tough questions and having conversations that we don't necessarily want to talk about or face. But the reality is, if we want honest children who are critical and independent thinkers, then I believe we must be as honest with them in all conversations as much as possible, even if they're uncomfortable or awkward to talk about. So this week, our topic is on ways we talk to our kids about death. And I chose this topic because I feel in our culture, especially, we tend to shelter our kids away from any talks about death and what it means and what our beliefs are. And I think one reason for this is that we don't always have the right words to say. And also, many of us didn't grow up having those difficult conversations with our parents. So when someone passes away, on many occasions, adults don't take the opportunity to talk to the children about it, but instead decide not to say anything, thinking that they're protecting them. So for many of us, it's even hard to talk about it or even express our own feelings because maybe we weren't raised to do that when we were younger.
Right.
So the question I had for anyone that's listening is when do you feel is the right time to start talking about death? Should you wait until death occurs, or should you discuss your beliefs before that? What age do you think is appropriate? How should you even start that conversation? So if you would like to share your opinion or experience with us, please call into the show. I would love to hear your perspective. We are broadcasting through Blog Talk as well as live on YouTube, and you can call in. The number is below, or you can type in your comment on YouTube on Akeem's channel, and that's spelled Akiemel. So, going back to avoiding having these difficult conversations, I think it's something that we tend to avoid as a community, especially people of color. I was raised where children weren't even allowed to be a part of grown folks, conversations. And we were sent to another room when there were talks about anything serious.
Mm.
And, if I had a question as a kid about a certain topic like sex, God forbid, or drugs or relationships, death, religion, I was always given this hasty response, right? Where I felt like I shouldn't even be asking the question. And I also felt embarrassed to ask those questions. So
Mm.
where does that even come from?
Uh,
What do you think, Akeem?
I think it comes from our most of it comes from religious points of view.
Mm,
Meaning, sex is such a taboo topic because they have in religion. I know when I came up, they made it like sex was evil if you weren't married, and if you were, fornication was evil, and they didn't give you a healthy conversation about it. You know,
right,
they told you all of the bad things. You can get pregnant. For the girls, you can get pregnant. Guy can leave you. You'll be by
right,
yourself. And then they give you, oh, you can get all these venereal diseases if you had sex, but no one ever told you accurately what sex is all about, what it's
right,
for, that it can be a very pleasurable and spiritual experience if with the right person. Um, but they don't you that's something you learn way after the fact.
right.
Uh,
I feel the same way. Like I had the same experience. And with being a girl, I was always taught that boys were bad.
right,
Stay away from guys. Guys are bad. They're
right.
bad news.
They just want to do this to you. They just want to get one thing and that's it and leave. Um, and I think that's why we have such a viewpoint, and also media,
Mm,
because when they're advertising cars, they always have this half naked woman standing in front of the car. Boxing rep matches, they have a half naked woman walking around with the number, telling you what the round is. And so that causes boys and men to objectify women's bodies, not see them,
mm-hmm.
who they really are, you know. So
Right.
all of that put together, plus you're not getting proper education from your parents about it. Um, that just adds for a recipe for disaster when it comes to how you look at sex. Because one thing TV glorifies is violence, right? The action movies are the big ticket sellers, someone killing someone.
Right.
But someone having sex on the screen is considered X-rated. You
Mm,
see somebody's head get blown off, cut off, stabbed. Horror movies, people just get bludgeoned to death. You can see
right.
they'll show you all that, and that's for the rating it'll get is rated R. But two people having sex is X-rated, and that's what those things produce. Sex produce life. Violence produces death. So I think those messages that they're sending. I'm not saying you should, everybody should just sit around and watch people having sex. What I'm saying is one thing is glorified, the violence and death, and actually sex is considered taboo, and you can't have, you got to go to special places to watch it and stuff like that. But you can
Right.
watch your head cut off. So
Right. Well,
it's
that's why I think it's so important for us, parents to be talking to our kids about these things, because they're going to get it anyway from outside the house. They're going to,
oh yeah, I
you
mean,
know, and like you said, social media, on TV, they're
yeah,
going to see some of these things
something.
anyway. And
It's gonna teach them their, because you don't know what type of household children are coming from, so they got things going on in the house, and they're bringing that to the schools or wherever they hang out at. So if
Mhm.
a child doesn't have a foundation of knowledge on those topics, they're gonna soak all of that up.
Right, right. So I know, for many people, it it can feel awkward or uncomfortable talking about certain topics with their kids, but I do feel like it's necessary. And like I said in the past, as parents should always be the first teacher for our children. And we don't want to miss the opportunities that we have to educate our kids. And when it comes to serious topics, we should always be the first ones. So for
Right,
me, over the past 20 years or so, I've come across a few families where they ask that question, how and when should I talk to my child about death? And it usually was during a time where a death actually occurred, which I think is more of an the natural opportunity when it actually happens. And I remember this one family's pet dog had passed away, and the mother was very distraught, mainly because she had the dog for many years and didn't know how to explain the death to her son, who was only 5 years old at the time.
right,
um, Now, I think it's important to realize that most children will experience a death at some point in their childhood or know someone who's experienced a death. And now, of course, the death of a pet is different from the death of a close family member or friend, but it still can cause like lots of different emotions. And we should be talking about that with our kids.
right.
Um,
I
so,
I
oh,
they
go
should
ahead.
learn, if they because children learn music at a very early age and can sing songs. So I think at that point they should be able to. You should be having that conversation with them,
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
like really
Um,
just sing song, like 4 or 5, somewhere around 5, 6, 7, 6. When they really have their comprehension,
mhm,
you know, they should be taught, you know, death is a part of life. It's the cycle of life. We don't have to teach it in a doom and gloom way. A lot of people teach it, oh, they're going to heaven and all, give us all kind of philosophies on what's happening to us after death. Of course, we don't know that for sure until we actually happen to ourselves, because no one's ever come back and proven those theories. But we should actually get them prepared. Hey, I'm not gonna always be here. This is the time. I think if you teach children early that, I think they'll have a different appreciation on life,
mhm,
because we're not teaching them that this life, this physical life is not forever. This
mhm,
body will go. We kind of put it out of our mind until it happens, and then we're faced with it. Now we're traumatized. There's no
mm,
preparation. Oh, somebody's going. I didn't think it would go this soon. We knew it was coming, but
mhm,
we deal with it in the moment, and I think that's why it hits home so hard.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good point. And I think they'll appreciate us in general just talking about those things with them, and they'll trust us more, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so for those who just started listening, we're talking about how to have a difficult conversation with our kids. And we're talking about the topic of death and how we can talk to our kids. Um, when I lived in Ohio, I'll never forget this. One of our kittens had passed away when my kids were really young. I think Sammy was about 5 and Rachel was around 3. And Rachel was the one who took care of the kittens that we kept from a pregnant cat that we had. And one of the kittens was really small and sickly, and it stopped eating. And one morning it had died. And let me tell you, like, I was mortified that I had to explain to them both what had happened, because I knew how much, especially Rachel really loved that particular kitten. And at first, she thought it was sleeping, but I knew something was wrong. And when I sat down and explained to them both what happened, um, she just bursted out in tears and was screaming. And it was it was a difficult discussion for me to have with her, but I knew
Right.
I had to have it. And one thing that I did that had helped was, before I talked to her, I had to gather my own thoughts and really think about what I was going to say.
Mhm.
So, um, I just wanted to share a few tips that you might want to write down, or keep just a mental note if this happens to you or if you're going through it. So, the first thing that I normally tell parents is that no matter what the age of the child is, to take time and process your own thoughts on what's going on. Think about how the death made you feel and how it happened and what your own faith and beliefs are.
Mhm.
And, you may need to cry and yell and scream, whatever you do to express your emotion, but take that time by yourself to process your own thoughts before you go and talk to your child. Um, and this is something that I shared with that mom whose dog had passed away, because she was extremely distraught. I mean, she was coming to me crying herself. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you can do is just sitting down and asking your child how they're feeling and what are their thoughts. Everyone processes death differently, especially children. With children, they might feel confused. They don't know what's going on. They might feel sad, angry, afraid, or they might not even know how they feel. So just reassuring them that whatever they're feeling is valid and it's okay to feel that way. Because I think sometimes we tend to, you know, not want our children to feel sad, or we don't want our children to cry. I've seen parents telling children, stop crying, or
Right.
stop doing this. And I think that it's important that we teach our kids that it's okay to feel something. We're not always happy.
Right.
So the third thing is ask them if they have any questions. Now, with young children, they usually have a hard time understanding the permanence of death, especially really young children. And they might ask questions like, what happens when you die, or what does death mean? And this is when you need to be, I feel, as honest as possible. Um, like you said, Akeem, death is a part of life. We die. When we die, our body stops working. Um, and I think it's important to give your child time to process your words. Make sure you're observing their behavior and response. If you see that it might be too much information for the child to take in, or they're showing signs of distress, you might want to break up the conversation and talk about certain details another time. Um, And you can reassure them that you're always going to be there. Well, you're going to be there for them to comfort them when they're feeling a certain way.
Right.
But I think, like I said, I think it's a true disservice to our kids when we like hush them and make them feel bad when they're showing their true emotions.
Mhm.
I think that's why sometimes as adults, it's hard for people to show their emotions, because when they were children, their feelings were never acknowledged.
Well, a parent can't teach a child how to acknowledge feelings if they don't know how to do it. And I think we're dealing with generations of that type of upbringing, that our
Hmm.
feelings, and that comes from a lot of the things we experienced in this country. We had
Hmm.
to just suck it up and suffer through certain things. So a parent can't teach what they haven't been taught. There's a lot of things that parents, but until someone breaks the cycle and does a conscious effort of changing those things, it'll just keep happening.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree. There were many things that I was not taught. And throughout the years, I learned from myself, and I decided to break the cycle and teach my children in a different way. So I think you're right. We definitely, many of us have to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes a lot of us don't realize that this cycle need to be broken until the children are grown.
Yeah, that's true.
Raise some kids, some children, into certain things I see my oldest son doing, and I tell him, hey, that's not a good idea.
Hmm.
He said, well, you did it. I say, yeah, I know. So I use you as an example. I'm just telling you,
Right.
it's
Hmm.
not a good idea. And here's why. So I could see a lot of the things that I did when he was young. Just he's doing it to his son. So,
Hmm.
but
Well, it's not too late, because he's still young. So
mhm. Oh yeah, it's not too late. I mean, it's just letting them know, hey, did it work for you when I did it? I tell them, I don't think it worked. So you might
right,
try something different. But
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Growing up, I was never like, my feelings weren't really acknowledged as much. Um, and I don't think some parents don't realize, like, even saying to your child, I see that you're upset. I see that you're sad. I see that you're angry. Do you want to talk about it? That means a lot, because they're being acknowledged.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I think there's some questions that we might not have um, an answer for, and I think that's okay too. I don't think we have to have all the answers for everything as parents.
Let them know you
You
don't
know?
have.
Yeah, exactly. You have to just tell
Don't
them, like,
have an answer for it.
right.
You used to look it up together. Yeah, it's sometimes parents will lie their way through an answer.
Right.
So which is not a good idea because later on the kid's gonna figure it out. It's not the truth.
Right. And like your grandson, he has so many questions. Every time I'm around him, he's always asking me questions. And I think our kids are smart enough to understand that if we're just making up something, they
Hmm.
know.
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm. I
So,
remember my father did some. I didn't think it was all the way truth, and I challenged it. And
mhm,
sometimes I didn't, but when I challenged it, he didn't like I don't have to lie to you about nothing. He never really gave a real answer about it. So,
mhm.
yeah.
I think most of the questions that are difficult to answer are the questions on faith and spirituality. Like when your child asks, if someone passes away and they ask, are they ever going to see them again, or just conversations about heaven and hell and
Yeah,
um
that's where it starts getting tricky.
right. And everybody has their own individual
Yeah,
belief, you
we
know.
we grow up with all of these beliefs. Oh, they're going off to heaven. They're going on to a better place. We going to do this, and that leads to a whole bunch of, when the kid get older, trying to verify that.
Right.
So I wouldn't, me personally, wouldn't even say anything. Oh, they're going on to, but this is what happened. They're dead, and we the body is gone. Now, my personal belief on what happens after you die, your spirit
Mhm.
continues on living. The truth
Mhm.
continues to live. But still, how do I prove that to a young?
Mhm. Right.
You
Right.
know, how do I prove that?
Right.
How do I say that? Me, I would personally just deal with what we're dealing with. That body is gone.
Right.
No, you will not be able to speak to that person physically ever again.
Right.
So
Right.
just deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I even get I remember I was always confused when people said they put their dog to sleep, because I would think like, okay, they put their dog to sleep. And as a child, I would always think, well, if I go to sleep, am I going to die? That's how children think. That's how young children think.
Mhm,
So even when we say things like that, um and adults say it all the time, but sometimes we don't think about how a child is going to perceive that.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to tell them, this is what happens. This is, anything's possible. Just be truthful with them. You don't know,
Mhm.
you don't know. If you know, you know. You know, I could sell them all my philosophical beliefs, but do I have definitive evidence of what I believe to present to them?
Right.
Because they're gonna get older and just form their own opinion at some point,
Mhm.
regardless of what I say. You know, and I might, hey, some people believe this, some people believe this, but none of that is, verifiable. But what is
Right.
verifiable is, at this point in time, that person is gone from this reality. So,
All right. Well, hopefully those tips help someone out there, who might be going through having a conversation like that with their child. Um for some reason, I cannot see any comment. Oh, okay. There goes the comments. Let's see if anyone commented. Um, okay. People are just saying hello. Matrix Media said, when we die, we most likely come back. I think it's our choice when we want to come back. I think all or
back,
most things are our choice.
like I said, that's what they
That
think.
right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? See, everybody's got an answer for this death issue. Serious, there's, man, I could go and say, hey, well, this is it. But what is truly it is this: the person you used to talk to on a daily basis or not, no longer can be talked to in this reality. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
that's verifiable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you start giving children all of these different viewpoints, I think it confuses them even more. you know, when you start saying, well, I believe this and I believe that, and now you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to influence their spiritual consciousness. I would say, hey, at some point you're gonna search out why this happens. And I think that's a personal thing for each person to do their research and ask for those answers and then come to their own conclusion. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, every does one perception make one perception right over the other? Really?
Mm.
You know, we all have our perceptions, and at the time we have that perception, we really believe we're right until we get different information.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah, I agree. And with very young children, they're still thinking concretely. So
right? So
So
it's like being accurate. Hey, this is what's going on. What happens after that, I really don't know for sure. This is what I've been
mhm,
taught. This is what I believe based on this. Having an accurate conversation with them to
mhm,
give a child, this is it. And then they grow up and then they come across some information that opposes what you just said. Now you just created another situation. You know,
mhm.
it's like you really don't want to mess with the consciousness of a young child by giving information that you can't verify because now you're trying to shape them and seeing your viewpoint. And if
Mhm.
you want them to be individuals, you have to allow them to come up with their thoughts and respect
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
It may disagree with yours, but it should be okay. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, now that my kids are older, I can have some of those um conversations on philosophy and what their beliefs are,
Mhm.
and it's interesting how they believe, what they believe. And I respect how they believe. So, I don't know if you have those conversations with your boys, Akeem, on their
Mm-mm.
beliefs.
They're grown. We don't. They know what I believe, and they got their beliefs. We don't really go back and forth like that.
Mhm. Okay, well, if you are a parent out there that needs support on homeschooling, you're looking for the right curriculum, you don't know where to start, or you're needing help understanding homeschooling laws in your state, please go to my website, home-schoolguide.com, and schedule a consultation. Also, if you have a concern with your child's current school and need an advocate to support you, I'm available for advocacy as well. Um, and if your child is a homeschooler and will be graduating this year, I do offer a customized high school diploma and or transcripts that are legally binding. It includes a gold certified seal along with the leather diploma cover. So if you're interested in that, you can find more information on my website. Um,
Mhm.
and
That
Akeem,
can be
did you want to?
as proof when you go to get a job. It's all
Right,
legal documents. A lot of
right.
people didn't know
Everything is legal.
that's possible as a homeschooler that you can have that proof. But I
Yeah,
think
well,
shuffled in
homeschoolers have to graduate too,
right. But
right?
people who have a bad viewpoint about homeschooling. Oh,
Mm,
I know a lot of educators who are in the system who don't agree with homeschooling. But consistently, homeschooling children do better than children who go to normal compulsory educational schools consistently. They achieve if they decide to like go back into that, they tend to do better than other children in learning. Yeah. And I think that's because it's more of a catered environment for that child. Whereas you go to regular school, there is no catering to one child. This
hmm
trying to manage several children in the same class, 15 plus children. I know when I was in school, it was 30 children in the class. And
Right.
that's far too many students for one teacher to handle. So you had, if you miss something, you kind of embarrassed to even say you missed it because everybody else, you think everybody's on the same page, they got the information. You don't want to feel like you're dumb. So you don't
hmm
say anything and the teacher just moves on and you really didn't get it. So that I think homeschooling is a far superior form of education.
hmm Yeah, and I think for a lot of parents, they feel like they have no choice, because they have to work. But I feel like when you have a child, um, you need to think about that, think about how you're going to educate the child
Right.
before having them.
Well, a
So,
lot of them are thinking in terms of how school taught them. So they feel like they have to do exactly what the schools is doing
mhm.
your child. And and sometimes children who go to regular school and you're trying to present that to them, they think like that too. So that's a big misconception. Actually, homeschooling is so much more relaxed in especially in states like North Carolina, where you choose what the child learns.
Right.
So and you're passing and failing the child. You're not going to give your child all of these ridiculous little things that the school makes you do
Mm-hmm.
for what they call, because a lot of those tests is not really for seeing where a child is at. Most of those tests is for seeing where they can get funding, you know,
Mm-hmm.
from. It's more about money than it is about educating the child. So,
Right. Yeah. Alexis Murr, he said it's too late for him because his little ones are 31 and
yeah,
25 and 21.
yeah.
And my kids are older too, and they both actually went. One went to private school, one went to public school, and I taught them when they were home. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I feel like if I known what I know now back then, I definitely would have did things differently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, well, I wanted to get into our book, Akeem, uh, the 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro
Uh-huh.
by J.A. Rogers. And last week or 2 weeks ago, we started discussing the ancient civilization. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe we talked about the Grimaldi people.
Right.
Um, and we learned uh, they were a Negro race that arrived in Europe thousands of years ago. Now, that word Negro, Akeem, do you feel that's like a derogatory?
At one time it wasn't, until this culture made it a derogatory term. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Negro is a derivative of the word naga, what we would say nigger, how the people would say it, but it was actually Neger, and that
Mm-hmm.
word meant God or deity.
Hmm.
So when they said there's the niggas, they would
Mm-hmm.
talk all those people gods. So
Okay.
I actually have a book. I don't. Oh no, I don't have the letter N, because I have a book that goes over the etymology of words, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm with the second volume where it covers the word the N word, the letter N. Yeah, so a lot of the words that we're using, like black, Negro, and all of those things, are um, they just change the meaning of them to make it sound like it's a bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So when you go back and look
Okay.
at the words, what they really meant when they first introduced the word, you're like, wow, this has nothing to
Mm-hmm.
do with what we've been calling people, you know?
Right. Well,
So
that's interesting. That's interesting. So I can read number 11.
can you see it? Oh, let me see.
Um, I can read it. I have it in front of me. Can you turn the page or bring it down or okay. So now it says Elam. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Elam, a mighty Negro civilization of Persia, flourished about 2900 BC and is perhaps older than Egypt or Ethiopia. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
One of its later Negro kings, Kudur Nakunta, conquered Chaldea and Babylon and brought back to his capital, Susa, rich treasures, among which was the famous statue of the goddess Nana. Later, it became the capital of Cyrus the Great and Darius. Susa is the Shushan of the Bible, where Esther and Jewess sought the favor of King Ahasuerus of Persia and Ethiopia. Now, Persia, that's in Iran, right?
Mhm.
Persia is located in Iran.
That's possible. I'll look it up. I think you're right. Mhm.
Okay. So I was gonna read the proof on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
So
yeah, absolutely right. What Persia is what we call Iran today.
okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So Persia was originally dominated by a Negro people known as the Elamites.
Mhm.
And it says De La Foy, a Frenchman, the principal excavator of Susa, the ancient Negro capital. So Susa was the capital, says, I shall attempt to show to what distant antiquity remounts the establishment of the Negroes upon the left bank of the Tigris and the constitution of the Susian monarchy.
Mhm.
Towards 2300 BC, the plans of the Tigris and Anzian Susinka were ruled by a dynasty of Negro kings. The coming of this dynasty of Medes corresponds perhaps to the arrival in the south of an immense Scythian white invasion. Okay, so there was a white invasion pushed back by the Black Susians after having taken possession of the mountains. The whites poured down upon the plans of Tigris and remained master of the country until the time when Kudur Nakunda, that was the king, subdued Chaldea and founded Anzin Suzunka, and who added to the territory of the blacks Neem, Kusu, Habardip, all the mountainous districts inhabited by the whites of the Scythian race.
Mhm.
And it goes on to say the Greeks themselves seem to have known these two Susian races. Have not their old poets given to the direct descendants of Menon, the legendary Susian hero, who perished under the walls of Troy, a Negro father, Tithon, and a white mountain woman mother, Kissia? Do they not say that Menon commanded an army of black and white regiments at the siege of Troy? Later, the Aryans and the Susians united to form the Persian race. So the Aryans and the Susians. The Susians were black,
Mhm.
and the Aryans were white. Is that right?
Aryans.
Aryans.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And they united to form the Persian race.
Mhm.
According to the Aeschylus, greatest poets of antiquity after Homer, Perseus, the ancestor of the Persian people, was the grandson of Pathos, who was black like his father Zeus.
Mhm. All of those gods back then were of dark skinned. They didn't become lightened up until this Western culture took over. So
Mm-hmm.
it had to, they went around and they didn't see themselves included in any history, so they had to insert themselves into history. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's really coming out that like this stuff really happened really over the last few hundred years. Like all of these changes, these big major changes. Oh,
Mhm.
because actually it was two white guys were talking about it. I was watching a video of them breaking down how a lot of the stuff we're reading out of the Bible and these characters didn't even exist until
Mhm.
a few hundred years ago. You know, so although the history book said it was taught years ago, and when it really got taught was when these new religions hit the planet, hit this. Especially here, you had the Mormons, you had the Jehovah's Witnesses, and
Mhm.
when those two religions took off,
Mhm.
right alongside them, a lot of changes to history started to take place in how they were teaching it.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, you know, people of color had no contributions and they had all the contributions.
Mhm.
Where, of course, there was no evidence, physical evidence of that. All they had was only evidence you have of what they were saying was in a book. But
Mhm.
the statues and the stone writings, there was a special years ago
Mhm.
was with, Richard Pryor. Years ago, I think it was like in the 70s, where they
Mhm.
went inside and they were taking they went inside of the tombs, and
Mhm.
he said, "Man, all of these are niggers in here." you
What
know,
movie was that?
it wasn't a movie; it was like a show, and they
Okay.
went inside, like they were like going inside of an Egyptian tomb. We at one point we thought the pyramids were tombs. That's what they were teaching. They
Mhm.
find out they're not tombs; they're power centers. So, um, see, how the story changed over years. When I was coming up, the pyramids were tombs. Now they're
Mhm.
not. They changed this. When you
Mm.
lie, you have to change the story all the time. So he
Mhm.
gets in there and he says, "Oh, all of these are niggers in here," because all of the
Wow.
paintings were all dark people, and they cut out on the camera when he said that.
Oh, wow.
But see, all ancient antiquity is always in a place where there's nothing but people of color. And here's the
Mhm.
perception that we are a minority is such a gross fabrication.
Mhm.
Only way you believe, only way you know that when they say white people are majority is what you hear them saying, well, these numbers that they create, right?
Mhm.
But people don't know you get to be called white if you're from Europe, if you're from Persia or what we call Iran, the Middle East. They can check off on a box saying that they're white if they're from that area. So that's how they're getting their numbers. Those people are dark over there. You know,
Mhm.
all of that whole area is full of dark people. So, and their names that they have are very close to names like mine, like Akeem. And when I walk into a Middle Eastern person's home and I say my name is Akeem, instantly I get respect just by saying that.
Mhm.
Oh, brother, when I say that name, you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, there was a college professor. He came here. I think he was teaching at no, it wasn't a college. It was remember Hunter. Was it Hunter College? It's Hunter, the school in New York? Is it a college?
Mhm. Hunter.
Hunter
Mhm.
College, right? He came to teach there, and he was from
Mhm.
the Middle East, and he was
Mm.
trying to figure out, well, how to fill out the application. They said, well, check off white. He was like, I'm not checking that off, and they were getting upset with him because he wouldn't check off white.
Mm.
You see, this guy was dark as I was.
Mhm.
So that's what. See, there's always some cheating going on with the numbers. People of color dominate this planet. 85 to 90% of this planet is people of color.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very small number of what they're calling Caucasian or white. It's very small amount compared to
Mm.
people of color. And even some people who think they're white, they're not.
Mhm.
And then I did something early in the week where I was talking about who really is a free white person. Guess who was not? People from Caucasian people are not free white persons. And Arab.
Mhm.
They said it specifically in the Black's Law Dictionary. These people are not Caucasian, free white people.
Mm.
And they named all of the people, and most of those people were dark skinned people.
I was looking up your name, when
Yeah.
you were talking about your name, and it
Mhm.
said that it is Arabic,
Yeah.
which is the language from the Middle East,
Yeah. It
parts
kept
of the Middle East.
it's from all over. You
Yeah,
all
parts of the Middle
all of those
East. Yeah.
places we call them Middle East is what part of Africa too, right?
Yeah, in Africa, North Africa. Hmm.
So it has different names. It means teacher in some places, depending on how you spell it, it means doctor. And then in some places it means wise one who knows. Those are the different definitions of that name.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, but when I say it, it's well known from people from that area. When I say that
Hmm.
name, it's like instant
Right.
respect when I say it to them. Like in this country, it's a different thing. But when I deal with people from Middle East and those areas
Hmm.
all over there, and I say that, they're like, "Oh, wow, okay, where did you get that name from?" They want to know who my family is to see if we can make a connection. You know.
Right. Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, did you want me to keep reading?
no, I'm good.
'Cause
I'm good
okay.
enough. I just,
Um,
everything, and they blow their heads off and keep telling them too much truth. Some people can handle that. They're too much. You can say too much. I actually put a picture of that place called Elam. It's on the
Elam.
screen.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, okay. 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 It's small. I can't. Okay. It says Persia.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right, Akeem.
it, yeah.
Okay. Well,
All right.
that's all I have for this evening.
That was good. Okay. Well, it was good.
I was trying to
Co-hosting.
look for the shows so that I can read off the shows, but
Well, I can do that off the top of my head. We have the Bombay show on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. My show Tuesday, Truth Tuesday, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have the Divine Connection show on Thursdays,
mhm.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Sunday, like today, the Raising Independent Thinking show. Those are all of the shows we have, and try to stream them all live to make it a lot. I see people love YouTube. Um, and still going to use the Blog Talk forum for people who want to call in and ask questions, things like that. Um, but try to do more, and I'll be doing some more um, spot, um, YouTube streaming. I got some very good information this year. I
You
don't know.
have shows throughout the week, don't you?
Yeah, I do maybe
You do
one or
shows.
two. I didn't do an extra one last week. Um, I don't know if I'm going to do one this week. Whenever I move to do it, I'll do it. I don't know, but definitely, Tuesday. I might even take Tuesday off. I'm thinking
I know
something.
you said you were gonna take a day off.
Right. I'm not
So
sure.
okay.
Um, I might have something to talk about. But anyway, as always, a pleasure doing the show with you.
Okay, well, hope you all tune in next week. Same day, same day, same time. I hope everyone stays blessed.
All right,
Okay,
peace.
peace, everyone.
All right.